this talk, and she asked me if I would give, quote, highlights from a student perspective, the INMM future vision for securing nuclear materials. And I'll be honest, I really had no idea what that was. I mean, I am a student, and I can certainly do a short presentation, but I don't really know what the INMM has in store for the future. Sometimes I don't know what they do. I'm interested for Chris's presentation to learn. However, what I can offer is my background in the field, what some of my frustrations have been in the field, and what I personally would like to see from INMM and the industry in general in the future. My first introduction to nuclear safeguards and non-proliferation was during my undergrad at the University of Washington. My BA was in international studies, which just sounds like we have some other policy folks. My parents never thought it would amount to anything, but it can. So I took a course called Non-Proliferation and International Safeguards from a State Department guy, retired Chris Kessler. Some of you guys probably know Chris. And absolutely loved the course, had a great time. Unlike the careers, my first introduction to this field was by reading NPT articles and excerpts and studying the different IAEA safeguard regiments. We would do little mock negotiations where one team would be the IAEA and the other team would be a country trying to hide nuclear material. It was awesome, and I loved it. I ended up taking about 7 of the 8 courses the university offered. It's time funded by INMM, so I now think it's done through NI-24. I then, through a fortunate connection and some hard work by people at the lab, got an internship out at ORNL after graduation. I did that full-time for a year, and then decided to go back to school, work on my master's. So I worked part-time for a year while working on that, and then decided to be a full-time student again and get a law degree for some reason. So I'm actually really excited to be here. This is my spring break, but it's a lot better than being in class. At the lab, I worked in the International Safeguards group with Michael Whitaker, who is here. He's been very nice and has kept me in the loop out there at the lab. I still come out a few days a week, be there the rest of this week. So I want to talk a little bit about frustrations, mostly because this is where most of my ideas of where I think the field should go for securing nuclear material comes from. And one of the first things I think of as a student pertaining to nuclear energy, material, security, etc., is that there's not enough growth, that the whole industry has been kind of stagnant. I have a lot of nuclear engineering friends out from the lab that are not just from a job perspective, which is kind of selfish, but there is that aspect too of that the whole, the industry I've been building a lot. There is some of those enrichment plants that are trying to come online, the extension of like Watts Bar and some of that. But the things have kind of come to a halt. Of course, there's always the government bureaucratic frustrations of federal agencies not talking to each other. The public image is another big issue, I think. Not just nuclear energy, but science, medical isotopes, waste management, I think is a huge problem. So from these frustrations, what I think the vision where INMM and the industry as a whole should move towards a continued focus on safety in general. A lot of this goes back to the public image idea. I think the U.S. safety record has been fantastic, and people should know that. And the need to secure nuclear materials obviously is not going away, whether or not greater production happens. If basic physics stuff, plutonium doesn't decay very fast. It's going to be around, and we got to do something with it. So the need to secure nuclear materials will always exist. But besides, the physical permanence of the material, the political climate shift, Fukushima happened, political things shift, Russia might continue to invade or annex countries. So obviously there's a need. We never know what the future might hold. So in addition to continuing to focus on safety, I personally think we also need to focus on cost effectiveness for existing technologies, for securing nuclear materials to make the technology easily accessible, not just here at home, but also to the countries abroad that are trying to start up programs, to really focus on securing the material to make it easy for training. Like, I know down at the Safeguards Lab, those handheld detectors are so expensive. And to really, I guess, to make them readily available for everyone. So, and of course, obviously, innovation, new technologies, get even better at the material accountancy, which is really difficult, I know. So for specifically thinking about INMM, and what I think INMM could see in the future would be to focus on such topical papers, maybe on how to change public image about nuclear technology. Again, not just energy or weapons, but waste management, the medical uses, etc. And additionally, INMM, I think, could continue to work on domestic and international nuclear technology, because even if the U.S., we decide we're not going to build any additional production facilities or reactors or power plants, others probably will. And we should want to, for the sake of improving technology and investment in the future, should continue the research also here at home. Now, this is slightly a departure, but we talked about the Y-12 incident, so I thought I would do some quick research and pull it up. As a law student, I have access to all of the legal documents, and so this is the actual case. If you want to go look it up, United States v. Wally. The United States charged the defendants with 3 counts, but they only ended up prosecuting 2 of them. The U.S. Attorney's Office. I'll actually be spending my summer at the U.S. Attorney's Office that prosecuted this offense here in Knoxville. So willful injury of a national defense premises with intent to harm the national defense, and willful injury or depredation of property of the United States in excess of $1,000. And the jury found them guilty on both charges, and the sentencing hearing was just a few weeks ago. The nun got 35 months in prison, and the 2 gentlemen got 62 months, though they were available for up to, I think, a lifetime in prison. In addition to about $50,000 in fines or $35,000 in fines or something. In addition, they determined it caused about $8,000 in damage to the property, what was done at Y-12. And I thought this was interesting, a quote from the judge's opinion in that case, back from October. The defendants are entitled to their views regarding the morality of nuclear weapons, but the defendants' sincerely held moral beliefs are not get-out-of-jail-free cards that they can deploy to escape criminal liability. Because the defendants' actions violated the plain meaning of Section 18 U.S.C. 2155A, their convictions must stand. So, that's pretty much what I had to say. As a closing remark, I want to thank the organizers of the event for inviting me and feeding me. And also remind everyone why I think institutions like this are important. With the recent, some of the government failures that we've seen, while the U.S. is not like in Egypt or Libya or Ukraine, institutions are incredibly important in maintaining a society and stability, especially when you're trying to rebuild. if you look at the differences between Egypt and Libya and their ability to come back, I think the institution played a really important role in Egypt as opposed to Libya. They didn't really have any. That these civilian groups not only offer an intellectual preservation of knowledge, but if in the event that things do go south here in the United States, whether we're attacked, etc., that institutes like INMM play a really important role in maintaining the knowledge of securing nuclear materials on the civilian side, and really could be called into action in any such event. So, that's what I wanted to say. Any questions?
So we do have time for questions.
So what do you think we, the Institute, could do in terms of public image, public outreach?
Well, I was sort of proposing to crowd surf an idea. Suggesting that people write papers with ideas. Obviously, corporations and the industry has a lot more money that they could put forward to that kind of work, which really is what it takes, I think, to get information out to the public about issues. You know, Fukushima will eventually be a thing of the past, but we could help it along or eliminate misunderstandings about nuclear technology.
Students first.
Well, as a student, this is kind of going away from the INMM a little bit. Could you talk about your decision to go back to law school? Because I've gotten some conflicting answers on whether or not in our field a law degree will really help you. Although I've heard a lot of people strongly advocate that you very much should. So I was wondering what your opinion is on that.
As for a job outlook, I have no idea, to let you know. It's an entirely different way of thinking. It's a little hard to imagine actually going back. I got to go back to take my political science classes in the fall, and I'm going to be confused because it's very different. They're really good at the indoctrination over there at the law school, and it's very critical thinking. So I think it is useful. You know, I can read the language of a text and really understand what every single word means. It does make a big difference in the field of law, every single word. But it depends on what you want to do, I suppose. Joe?
Yeah. Let me get the microphone. So Ann, this question is probably for the whole group, so we won't put you too much on the spot. So outside of the INMM, my question, moving from industry to academia, would be how can we intersect policy with the technical in order to move away from this whole problem with Renaissance and nuclear Renaissance. I mean, my bottom line here is that INMM is a resource, but I think academia is a resource too. My question is, since we have academics in here, is what more can we do in the academic side in conjunction with perhaps with the INMM? So it's an open-ended question really for everybody, but you may want to start the discussion. So I think academia plays a role in this too. I don't know, Howard, if you want to have a comment there as well, but I think academia plays a role. That's why we're here at the Howard Baker Center for Public Policy.
And I just thought I'd let you know, I don't know if you know our past president, Scott Vance. Scott's one of the lead lawyers over at TVA. He has been trying for the last year or two to get a topical session at INMM on the legal aspects of nuclear. And I would just encourage you to reach out and contact him.
Well, thank you. Yeah, I pulled up some of the regulations just out of curiosity, because I haven't delved much into nuclear in my classes yet. And I thought about copying and pasting some up onto a screen, but it would have been like 60 slides for like one topic. Any comments from Joe's question?
I think there might have been one.
I have one question for you. Kind of what are your career aspirations? I was just curious to know about that. And then to this idea of what can the INMM do? I mean, I think having us here is one thing that's a great opportunity. Having the University of Georgia and our other partners from other universities attend this event has been useful. The other thing is that at the University of Georgia and other schools, we offer policy courses like you were taking at University of Washington with Chris Kessler. And what I think is needed for those who are interested is an easy track to, say, do a master's in non-proliferation like we offer, or Monterey Institute, and then add to that the technical piece. So if there was a way to get more exposure to technical aspects of nuclear engineering or the nuclear fuel cycle, to prepare for positions at the laboratories or in the nuclear safeguards arena or at the IAEA. I mean, one of the challenges is that all the great jobs at the IAEA in Vienna, most all of them require some technical training. And we've got all of our students here would love to take these jobs at the IAEA, so it's a great place to be. But if they don't have that technical expertise, it's difficult to get those positions. So I would encourage the INMM to think about how they could maybe help bridge academic programs, perhaps. I'm not sure exactly how they do that, but they could perhaps facilitate some collaboration amongst academic institutions. Or maybe academic institutions just need to get together and figure out how to do this.
In my time at Oak Ridge has been really great for the technical aspect. Not having come from a technical undergraduate program, I've learned a lot with Michael, being exposed to everything. And I know there are, some of you may have done internships, I don't know, at labs or like the Monterey course that I know you went to. All right, good.
All right, well, thank you, Ann.